Good evening, everyone. I'm Shashikara Rasanjali, fourth year student of Faculty of Communication and Business Studies, Department of Languages and Communication Studies, Trincomalee Campus, Eastern University, Sri Lanka. I warmly welcome all for today's webinar titled on English Language Teaching and Learning Theories by guest speaker Dr. V.M. Subramanian, Professor in Linguistics, Head of the Department of Linguistics, Bharatiya University, Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu, India. Before beginning this session, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to Senior Lecturer in Linguistics, Dr. Niruba Jayasundara, Faculty of Communication and Business Studies, Department of Languages and Communication Studies, Trincomalee Campus, Eastern University, for providing this platform to us. Now, I invite Dr. Niruba Jayasundara to welcome our chief guest, Dr. V.M. Subramanian. Now, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Shashikala, and good evening, everyone. So our guest speaker, Dr. V.M. Subramanian, Associate Professor, Head of the Department, Linguistics, Bharatiya University, Coimbatore, India. Professors from various universities, from home to abroad, colleagues, and my dear friends, my dear students, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to this academic talk on English language teaching and learning theories by Dr. V.M. Subramanian. First of all, I would like to thank Professor for his kind consent to give us this special lecture on ELT, since we have a subject in ELT in our syllabus, and this knowledge sharing would be an immense help for our students. Actually, I met Professor Subramanian in Bharatiya University when I visited in India in 2022. The department honored me by providing an opportunity to deliver a special lecture to the MA students of linguistics. And Professor treated me as a longtime friend with respect and dignity. And the hospitality I received from the department and the staff is the proof of that Indians are the best in hospitality in the world. I take this opportunity to thank Professor for your kindness and hospitality. Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
And apart from this personal note, it's my pride and privilege to introduce Professor Subramanian for today's academic forum. Professor Dr. V.M. Subramanian has received MA in English, MA in Linguistics, MPhil, PhD in India. Professor has a professional experience of teaching for 21 years and the research experience of 26 years. Professor has received an award from his university for the highest number of paper publication in 2020 and another award for the sponsored research project in 2022. His research areas are testing and evaluation, ELT, stylistics, translation, and tribal linguistics. He has published 3 books, 45 research articles in reputed journals and book chapters. And under his guidance, 13 students had completed doctoral studies and 18 students completed MPhil degree. He visited China, Malaysia, UAE, and Thailand for his academic endeavors and organized 15 national conferences and seminars and 7 international conferences. Professor is the chief editor of the Bharatiya University UGC recognized journal Working Papers on Linguistics and Literature, and completed 3 major projects and 1 minor project, and also a project coordinator for 3 major research projects in UGC. So with this brief note, I would like to welcome Professor V.M. Subramanian for this academic talk. And it's over to you, Professor. Welcome.
Thank you, madam. Thank you very much for your wonderful introduction. Yeah, it's my pleasure to recall those days you just came to Bharatiya University and delivered a lecture. Thanks on behalf of my university and myself. And thanks for your wonderful introduction related to my career and all these things. Thank you very much. Indeed, it's my pleasure to meet you all guys through this online platform, so as to deliberate some aspects related to language and language teaching. most of us are well familiar about language teaching methods, theories, learning principles, and so many things. And in today's lecture, I'm going to, maybe you can feel like I'll just recall some of the basic concepts related to language learning and language teaching theories. And simply, I could say, I'll just recall a few major theories and the theories which are the backbone for the modern day teaching learning platform, especially in English language, and how these are incorporated in the present day online teaching learning methods. And we are moving towards a kind of a movement related to computer orientation. And in future, we are expecting more related services from online and bots. So soon we can expect a man-machine integration will be with a highly efficient manner. At the time, the language teachers are in need of supporting this bot-oriented language augmentation. And with this simple note, I will just start this lecture. And initially, I would just want to give you one basic concept of language, and that is what you know, and kind of recall about language. So we human beings, we have a kind of a sophisticated weapon or tool, what we call language. And this language is, maneuvered, and it gone under various process during various period and various modernization techniques and strategies. And presently, we are having a language which is highly sophisticated. And this highly sophisticated tool or weapon, sometimes we used to call language as a weapon, because it is more serious and it is more friendly, and it is kind of offensive and defensive mechanism. In most of the cases, you can notice that all over the world, language plays a crucial role. And otherwise in Tamil, people used to say tongue is the most dangerous weapon of the world. But tongue, they mean that it's a language. And this language has three components equally. I used to inform my students that when you speak a language with life. So language has three equally important components. That is, a language is physical, a language is intellectual, and the language is very much important that it should be having some feeling. So in most of the time, what we do, we speak the language without emotions, without tones, without any stress, or without any modulation. If we speak a language without all these para features, of course, the language will be a dead one. It can't convey the intended meaning of the speaker. So we fail. So language is emotional. It is not just a kind of intellectual property. It is not a physical property. Rather, it is a kind of emotional property. So the three equal components, physical, emotional, and intellectual. So these three components should go together. Only then the meaning making and the meaning conveyance process will work, and the receiver can enjoy the language. And in this line, we approach the language. Various theories existed. Language is not a kind of new tool for us. We just we develop the language, and we use the language, and we cultivate the language for a prolonged time. And during the process of this period, so many changes have undergone. We standardized and modernized the language with so many new inventions, new additions into that one for the betterment of the language users. And today we are going to see the backbones of the language and the backbone theories of the language, how they existed, and how we made the theories which should be acceptable, which are very pertinent, and through which we can create still further theories for teaching and learning practices, especially in English language. I guess most of you are from second language or English as a second language perspective, and hopefully you can get more insights, as well as you can feel free to interact at the end of this session too. So let me share some of the things for you. So I can just share you some of the slides so that you can get more idea. Can you see the slides, madam?
Yes, Professor. Yes, we can see it.
Yeah. Okay. So I will just maximize into the whole screen so that all the people can read. Okay. So this is the first thing about the language. Simply is to say the basics of human language. Language is systematic and generative. We all know that. It is a systematic. When we say it is systematic, is it still systematic? Yeah, to some extent it is systematic, but not a complete systematic. And it is generative, we cannot deny it. So we generate the language and we made the system for the language later point of time. And language is set of arbitrary symbols. Here you could see language is made not based on any concept or any philosophy or any theory or any model or any principle and even no hypothesis. Language is arbitrary symbols. Language is arbitrary in nature. So it was created. Later on, we try to incorporate some theories with some logics and reasons. The best fitted theories are acceptable, and the other theories are also undergoing some changes and additions and modifications. So language is purely arbitrary, and no theory evolutionized this language. So language existed, later on theories came. And those symbols are primary vocal, but may also be visual. So now we gave a visual or a kind of concrete symbols to the language also. And the symbols have a conventionalized meaning to which they refer. Yeah. So it is based on the practice. It is based on the traditional. It is based on the use by the ancestors. Like that, we still follow it. And language is used for communication. Language operates in a speech community or culture, and language is essentially human, although possibly not limited to humans. Now we are taking this language to further heightened levels. Sometimes we use a language at computer, and sometimes you extend the language to animals too. So language is now not just limited to humans, it is also to other lifeless things like computers. And the AI bots are working far better than the common human these days. And maybe based on the imitations, based on the styles which are already made, and the Google, they are just collecting all the data from the languages and the language speakers, and they store it, and they just use a kind of technique, and the technique helps to identify what style will suit to the person, and based on the requirements it creates. So language is acquired by all people in much the same way. Language and language learning both have universal characteristics. So this is the basic thing about language. I hope you can get well about this idea. And the first theory of related to language, several theories existed even before humanist theory. But I just stick to the point that I don't want to go with the theories which existed in Greek and Latin languages, and the Greek and emperors, how they deal with the language. Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, and these people, they are analysts. They are having a superior variety, and they have their own versions. So I'm not going to that further. Furthest past. So I just started with humanist theory, which is a bit recent. And you can make use of these kind of things for your future perspectives too. That's why I just limited with starting of the humanist theory. So it just developed during 1960s. And the very word give you the idea about what is humanist theory. And it is just emphasizing human freedom, social maintenance, dignity, and value. So simply it is treating human as a fellow human and treating the language as the embodiment of human being. So humanistic theories study the human as a whole in terms of all the characteristic development that take place in life. So humanist theories believe that learning process are done due to the observational motive of the learners. So here we could see the humanist theories give a kind of human form so as to understand the language as one of the basic components. It is a kind of a social wear now. Language is a social wear. People used to say, what is the most important thing for a human being? Maybe we say the dress of the human being, the wear of the human being. Now, language is the wear. Language is the wear. This is the basic thing of a human being. So humanist theories believe that learning aspects are done due to the observational motive of the learners, and the teacher or leader becomes the role model, and the students become their followers. And it is the duty of the elders to have watch, and the young learners not to follow and believe indifferently. So here we could see a kind of, it's not orthodox, it is rather classical, it is a kind of tradition. So what the humanist theory believe and what they suggest, human beings use the language traditionally and based on the usage of the ancestors, based on the argumentations of the old people, the youngsters they learn, and it goes to generation. And they believe that thinking indifferently and talking indifferently, writing indifferently is not a kind of cultural or a traditional thing. So most probably it is a kind of copying the old behavior or linguistic behavior among the human being. And learners take up and watch observation, knowledge, stimulus, and act upon it. The learners perform and work on self-correction until they reach perfection on par with the model they choose to follow. Here we have to notice one thing. Traditionally, we will learn something, not just language, whatever the skill we do. For example, learning cycling or learning swimming or driving, whatever. Not all the swimmers are doing in the similar way. Not all the drivers are driving in the similar way. And not all the people who learn the skills physically and linguistically follow the similar pattern or similar method. What is the reason? The reason is, based on the human beings' thinking and cognition, there is a slight variation. And if the thinking and cognition is in the right perspective within the limitations of the logic and reason, the society will not disturb anything they can do. For example, if a grandfather helped 10 people, if the grandson helped 100 people, people will appreciate because it is in the same positive line. Who said that the guy should help her 100 people? No, it is out of his thinking, it is out of his interest, it is out of his newer idea. That is good, and that is within the acceptable limit. So do the language. At the same time, if the grandson is doing something indifferently, rather helping the 10 people, if he is disturbing the 10 people, and the system will not accept. The same as the language. So when people speak the right language with the right intention, with the right tone, with the right variation, the society accepts because they feel that language is a kind of guardian to the society, and they did not encourage the people to go or cross the boundary line with what they feel. And later on, these ideas have been changed because the human beings' evolutionary things happen by means of their experience and their thinking pattern and their basic stimuli. And we will see in the next theories. And in learning process, it is possible for the learners to work together and take a collaborative task to perform one by one and let the others watch, correct, regulate, and appreciate. Here, we could notice that the humanist theory believed that the language which is spoken by the people, that should be within the limitations, that should be within the acceptable limit of the particular society. And the whole world, that means the whole society is watching, correcting, and regulating, and they never fail to appreciate. So here, it is a kind of copying of language or thinking patterns, ideas, and skills, and whatever they do for ages together. And if you if you consider this one at the modern day, it is against the freedom of the individual. People may feel, but still they enjoy the freedom and light modifications, variations that happen. And if it is in the positive mode, they appreciate and accept it. And humanist theories focus more on linguistic performance of the learners rather than providing description of the language. Here, one important point: when they try to use the language, they just feel that language is a kind of tool for communication. Rather, they did not like, or they don't want to do any further researches, or they don't want to know much more about the things related to language. Rather, they just use language as a kind of a tool for communication. And the humanist models of learning provide more confidence and practice to the learners to study the linguistics and knowledge components in human output. So here we can say, even if you take a look at the society some 50 years back, you could notice that if a child is doing something differently, or if the child is misbehaving, it doesn't matter who is that person, but it does the matter that the guy is the guy is entitled to correct the child, whoever it may be, whether he is a relative or a neighbor or even unknown person. If elder is noticing that a child is misbehaving, it is a duty of the elder to correct it. So that was the practice, and that kind of idea, that kind of concept was in the minds of the people, and eventually they tried to safeguard the language. And this is simple thing about humanist theory. And now I just move on to the behaviorist theory. Most of you are well familiar about this one, because I know the behaviorist theory have some touch with the psychologist Watson and Skinner. Most of you are well familiar about this one. So behaviorist theory concentrates on the core observation of acquiring the knowledge of the learner in the available setup. Behaviorists believe that learning takes place through the interactions with the people and the environment. And Skinner defines behaviorism and language learning through this concept of what called operant conditioning, and through which he substantiated the learning grew out of a process of reinforcement and punishment, and thereby individuals are trained into saying the right thing. Unlike learners, internal behavior related to feeling and thoughts, the external source help building their behavior as well. So here we have to notice one important point. What the behaviorists believe is, behaviorists believe that language is a kind of a thing which can be learned by means of recurrent practices. What do we do? If a child is not speaking perfectly, what do? We just ask the child to speak again and again, over and over. If the child is practicing, and one fine morning, the child will be able to speak. So by means of recurrent drills and practices and activities, the child is able to make. And how do they grab the language? By means of acquiring the knowledge, acquiring the skill from the fellow being, from the family members, from the friends, and simply from the society. The children, they just acquire the language, the pattern, and all the rules and regulations. That's what the behaviorists believe. And Skinner and his followers notice one thing that is very much important. Related to behavioral learning, there are some external forces, they influence the learning pattern, the learning behavior. And it was testified with one simple experiment that was done by the Russian physiologist Ivan Pavlov. So he made a series of experiments which is referred to as Pavlov's dogs. So here you have heard of this story. Pavlov found out a classical conditioning unintentionally during his experiments into animals' gastric systems. In a significant event, while measuring the salivation rates of dogs, Pavlov found that the dogs would produce saliva when they heard or smelt food in expectation of feeding. So this is, right, what we witness, not just among the animals. It is a common thing that if there is an aromatic smell gushing out of the kitchen, ultimately the people who used to smell, maybe they will be mouth watering, and they get a kind of appetizing, and sometimes salivate. So this is the human being's nature too. And Paulo tried to testify this kind of act of the dogs, and he conditioned the dogs with this kind of salivation. by including one more condition, that was ringing a bell or just making a kind of different behavior. And later on, the dogs found that the salivation of the salivating activity and the extra stimuli, which was in coordination with the food, which was in coordination with the feeding system, the dogs learned that, the dogs had got that idea that they are similar. And Paulo showed that they could be conditioned together, unconsciously associate neutral, unrelated events with being fed. So here, what is the connection between the feeding and what is the connection of feeding and the bells or the bell sounds or kind of creating noise or any kind of things? So this association of the unrelated or not related things with other events, with the recurrent events. So behaviorists believe that that is also made possible. It was tested. So a new idea or new knowledge came into human beings that by means of recurrent practices, even unassociated events can be associated. So just opposite of this, mentalist, what mentalist belief was completely different from this, behaviorist. If you call mentalist, Chomsky come first. So I just took some of his ideals of Chomsky. Naim Chomsky and his mentalist followers claim that a child learns his first language through cognitive learning. And they claim that language is governed by rules and is not a haphazard thing, as Skinner and his followers would claim. So here, the basic thing itself, there is a contradictory idea. Chomsky believed that language is purely based on the cognitive ability of the children, whereas the Skinner and his behaviorist followers believe that language is a kind of a recurrent behaviorism by means of practice, and they make the language more perfect in the later point of their life. But Chomsky's idea is completely different. So they claim that language is governed by rules and is not a kind of a bizarre thing. What Skinner and his followers believe. So according to Chomsky, the child is born with the mental capacity for working out the underlying system to the jumble of sounds which he hears. Yeah, that is possible. When a child starts to learn a language, it doesn't learn the language with its original pattern. Sometimes it misplaces the words. Just sometimes it jumbles not just the sounds, even the words. So the order is misplaced. Maybe they know the meaning, but they don't follow the order because meaning is important for them. Order is not that much important for them. Because they have that kind of logicality. That's what we call this cognition. And he constructs his own grammar and imposes it on all the sound reaching his brain. So here we could see the children have their own grammar. Sometimes we force them to change the grammar because our grammatical system, you take an example. English language has a kind of wonderful irregular patterns. Nobody can proudly claim that English language has a perfect grammatical system. What is the irregular pattern? Maybe incorrect or wrong grammatical pattern. But we follow the wrong grammatical pattern because it is arbitrarily they create this grammatical rules, and by means of practice we follow it. But the children, when they learn, they want to learn it with more systematic. Their cognition works that why I should go for irregular pattern. That's what in the mind of the children. As a result, they commit mistakes. In most of the mistakes the children commit is in the irregular pattern of the grammar. The reason is simple, that they apply their logic and their cognitive function. Cognitive faculty works that the scientific and reasonable things are always appreciated. That's what they think. So Chomsky of the strong belief that the children, they have their own grammar. Children grammar is nothing but the perfect grammar. And later point of time, we teach them the irregular patterns and they start to irregular pattern. Right. So here there is a fine contradictory between this Skinner group and Chomsky groups. So the theory of Chomsky's universal grammar existed during the same period of Davis movement, but with more power and wider acceptability. Universal grammar representation is complete opposition of Skinner's behaviorist theory. Skinner identifies that all learning are from the external stimuli, whereas Chomsky witnessed an innate device for language acquisition. Here we could notice that Skinner believed that if a person is very good at language, if his oracy is very great, if his linguistic repertoire is very fine, that means he has to learn a lot. That means he has to follow and copy, and he has to listen from the so-called greatest guys and greatest learner orators. Only then the person can be a very good speaker and writer, because it is based on perfect follow of things. But Chomsky and idea is completely different, and they say there is an innate device in the brain of the human beings, and especially it start to work from the childhood onwards, and what they call it as a kind of language acquisition device. So that language acquisition device, otherwise called LAD, is nothing but a kind of a perfect system. We can just incorporate with more science and more logic. And that system helps the children to think in a right perspective. And this is applicable to universal children's language learning. It is not just related to one child belongs to one community at one point of time speaking one particular language or one particular dialect. No, it is universal. Any child born in the world have the similar kind of thing. That means they all have the kind of similar pattern of thinking. So we could notice that the children, they speak right. Yesterday I go. Tomorrow I came. So tomorrow I came. What is wrong in it? The child visualize that the child, the thing, tomorrow and yesterday is the same, because today is neutral, so today is the middle, and yesterday is past, tomorrow is future. So the child witnesses there is no difference between yesterday and tomorrow. So the child says, misplaces the word, just incorporate these two in the sentence making process. And eventually you could say most of the irregular grammatical pattern, the children will not follow it properly. And they call it with simplified forms, and they call it with some logic. When they say amma, appa they say, akka they say, and they will also be ammamma, because mother's mother, they say ammamma. So what is the reason? The reason is, if they add one more, that will go to the next generation like that. So that, kind of applicability of that language system is found among the children. And that is all because of their, innate language acquisition process. That's what Chomsky and people believe. And this phenomenon led the children to articulate the language in the context at times not following the irregular patterns of the language. And Skinner's idea of social conditioning in language practice was replaced by the LAD that structures all languages. Chomsky's universal grammar accepted by a wider population and plays a significant role in linguistics. Researchers for more than half a century, it has only a limited idea to do with second language learning. Of course, it deals with a deeper level with the language of the children. The next one is cognitive theory, and cognitive learning theories are placed in the higher order research perspective. Cognitive theories express and explore the power of human mind and the way it processes. The major aspects of cognitive theory involve the connection between mental works and the information that is processed through this complex network. As a result, as individuals, individuals learn, they actually create cognitive structures which determine their concept of self and the environment. The specific process of learning is not the primary area of concern in cognitive research. Instead, learning is viewed as only one of the many processes compromised by the human mind. So here we could say cognitive science, cognitive linguistics, cognitive social theories, psychological interpretation with cognitive psychology, cognitive sociology. So all these things, they have their own interpretations, and they have their own role. So simply, how can we, classify this cognitive process of human mind, and how it works, and how we incorporate these cognitive styles of human beings with machines and other people. And the best thing is Google's neural management system. They tried with the data, and then they tried with the statistical model, and now they are moving towards neural management model. That is nothing but the artificial intelligence. So all the cognitive outcome of the human beings, they are recorded. For example, any language has a limitation. Is there any language which has no limitation? No, of course, there is a limitation. So without limitations, no language can exist. But coming to the point of human cognitive abilities, simply we can say we have to admit that it is unlimited. It is unlimited. For example, take a look at your own cognitive faculty. Since you get up in the morning till you go to bed, how many ideas came to your mind? How many ideas bubble in your mind? Can you count all of them? And can you give shape to them? And can you, of course, we cannot speak all the ideas that pop up in our mind since we get up early in the morning. We process them and we just, cultivate them. And some of them can be, expressed to others. Some of them cannot be expressed to others. Is it possible? Is there anybody who dared to explain or express all the ideas that popped up out of your mind since this morning? No. But, we have limitations because we are bound to live in the society. We have culture, we have system, and we have so many constraints. So we are not able to speak out. So what I am going to tell you about this one: is it possible for us to give shape and form to all the ideas that bubbles in the human mind by making use of the cognitive faculty in a simple language? Is that language and the linguistic features are good enough to give shape and form to all the ideas of the human beings? Highly impossible. Highly impossible. We compromise. Every time you create an idea, before you create an idea, what do? You just conceive some idea. The conceived idea is having some newer shape and form, and finally you produce into the paper or you just speak out. So all the ideas cannot be given form and shape in the name of the language. So the cognitive faculties have limitations. That's one point. Other point, we have limitations in language expressions, linguistic expressions, because it is purely based on the number of lexical items available in the language, and it is based on the practical rules and regulations and theories imposed on a particular language. So, language structures, sentence structures are limited based on the number of lexical items. For example, a language has only 100 words. How many structures you can create? Hardly you can create 100 into 100, maybe 10,000. Sorry, 100,000. So more than that you cannot create. Out of 100,000, how many meaningful sentences you can identify? So any language has limited structures, limited sentences. Among the limited sentences, how many of them are meaningful? So what this the Google neural management system is doing now, take a look at the English language. How many sentences, meaningful sentences, when we can create in English language? There is a limitation. If we are able to make that number of sentences, if we are able to identify, or if we fill all these meaningful sentences under one system, things will be fine. So we cannot go for any further creation of sentences. And our cognitive faculty will be unlimited. The linguistic features and linguistic availabilities are limited. And with this one, we just manipulate. And what this modern, psychologists and sociologists and computational linguists believe is human's language is having some limitations. With that limitation, so computers can simply win over by means of the number of structures. So the AIs are creating now, and the AIs are not creating, they are just copying the perfectly made, perfectly opt sentences they are identifying. That is what this AI percentage is doing. And in future, there will be some more modifications and changes. So here, these cognitive theories are revolutionize the idea of language, that nobody can claim that language is a kind of a thing with unlimited sources like a sea of sentences. No, it is highly impossible. But it has limitations, not like the ideas. And the cognitive theories believe that the learning involves the integration of events into an active storage system comprised of organization structures termed schema. And the schemata acts in a number of functions of human cognition, apart from storing information in long-term memory schema, format frameworks into which the new information needs to be understood. So moreover, schemata regulate attention, organize the searches of the environment, and fill in the gaps during the information processing. So the human mind uses schemata to selectively organize and process all the information individuals receive from the world. So here we could notice that not all the people are having the equally, the similar or same or common information. It depends on individuals' experience, individuals' idea about the particular thing, and the environment. That means the context they live in. So these are all the constraints behind these cognitive abilities of human being. And there is another, scientist, Jean Pascio, emphasizes on cognitive growth and development in human being. And for him, knowledge is created through a dynamic and evolving relationship between internal structures, cognitive process, and the environment. And he identifies that the individual interact with their world of people by constantly collecting and organizing information. Passion, in his theory of cognitive development, identifies that children undergo 4 different stages of mental development. Maybe the those who will learn psychology would have come across this one. So his theory deals with understanding the nuances of children's acquisition of knowledge, understanding the nature of intelligence. And there are 4 stages, simply you could see from the slide. The sensory motor stage, that's a very basic, like infant stage, we could say, from the birth to 2 years. And the pre-operational stage, there is a children, between 2 to 7, and the concrete, operation stage, the boy or girl, 7 to 11, and formal operations start with the teenage, 12. Most probably they are 12 or 13, like that. So these are the 4 different stages of the cognitive developments among children. Now I just move on to Krassen's monitor theory. Stephen Krashen, not introduced, and based on the earlier theories, he proposed this monitor theory. It is a distinction between the concept of acquisition and learning. And here I just, most of you know that from Stephen Krashen. He points out acquisition is nothing but, by means of overhearing or by means of the subconscious process in our mind, we just heard something, we just grabbed something from the society or from the senior or from the fellow being or from just witnessing from our 5 senses. For this acquisition, we just don't need a kind of a formal setup or learning things in a classroom or with perfect methods and rules. So for grabbing things and knowledge, people can use their senses also. We have the 5 senses. By means of the 5 senses, we just grab the thing. For example, after having a good look at the colors pattern or from the structure of one good place, maybe the good people or the people who are having good sensational understanding or good observation, they can create the similar things. For example, what helped Dr. Abdul Kalam to make missiles. So there are stories, what made the Wright brothers to invent the flight. Maybe, based on their, acquisition of the idea how the birds are flying and how the things are working. And why don't we like that? I mean, they just copy, metaphorically, that ideas are just transferred. And after that, they want to apply some science or some other, concrete things so as to, make it as possible. So Krassen's acquisition idea is nothing but just grabbing something by means of the recurrent idea, or just overhearing, or from the subconscious mind we get. Whereas learning is a kind of deliberate attempt in a formal setup, and we need methods, and we need process, we need principles, we need a good setup. So that's what Krasen distinct from learning and acquisition. So the basic principles of language learning here, you could see language is a tool for communication. Learning a language involves mastery of both skill and knowledge. So here people may ask two things: what is a skill and what is a knowledge? So skill is the ability to make the knowledge work, and knowledge is the idea about the thing, or an idea about the skill. And learners need to give serious consideration to the impact of feeling on language study, and learners vary considerably in their preferred approaches to learning. And these are the basic principles. And now we just move to the definition to first language and second language. These are basic things. We know that when a child born in a society, and the first language, that means the environment in which the child is growing, well, that language we call it as a first language. No matter the mother or father speaks any language, it is purely based on, in Indian system, I don't know very well clearly about the government policy of identifying the first language and second language of the child. But in Indian system, for example, my place here in Coimbatore, there are a lot of people from migrated from other places, and they speak different languages. And there are several streets, the whole streets are dedicated for that particular mother tongue. And even the child goes out and play, they used to talk. For example, Gujarati, there is a street for Gujarati people, and all the children, they learn, not learning, they acquire the Gujarati language because they live in one or two streets, but still their mother tongue is Tamil, because Coimbatore city is considered as one part of this Tamil Nadu. So the child who born and brought up in Tamil Nadu, his mother tongue is Tamil only. Because when the child goes to neighbor school, the policy is, the local language or the mother tongue is Tamil only. So this is the not very strictly people are just saying that, but still people claim that I born and I brought up in my area, and I well versed in my mother tongue. My mother tongue is not Tamil, so why I should call my mother tongue is a Tamil? They can claim, but the policy, I don't know much about the system in your country or other places. Maybe it depends, or it may have some changes in other countries. And learning and teaching, these are the two important things. And learning is acquiring knowledge of a subject or a skill by study, experience, or instruction. And look at this, learning includes acquiring knowledge, not rather just learning. It is also acquiring, because when a child is being taught in the classroom, the child is not just looking at the board and the textbook, rather the child is acquiring or just imitating the style of the language spoken by the teacher, the style of the writing by the teacher, the style of the writing by the best student in the class, by the style of the speaking of the best speaker in the class. So learning in the classroom is not just only learning, rather it is also included with the acquisition process. Shortly, an education psychologist would define learning even more succinctly: a change in an individual caused by experience. So if that experience is in the classroom, that's what we call now teaching learning place. And similarly, teaching, which is implied in the first definition of learning, may be defined as showing or helping someone to learn how to do something, giving instructions, guiding in the study of something, providing with knowledge, causing to know or understand. So that is teaching. Teaching, a teacher should make something in the human being. I mean, among the student. So what is teacher, or what is teaching? Who is a teacher? So people used to say a teacher is a person who teaches a new knowledge, who introduces a new knowledge. Is that all? No. A teacher is a person who is able to make some impact on the minds of the students in a serious sense. I don't know how many teachers can impact in the mind of the student, but if you are able to make, then you can. Yeah. So that impact should be positive. That is very much important. And now I just move to the latest language learning theory model by Douglas Brown in 2014. So he made some conditions for language learning, and the process sometimes works, sometimes gets great success, sometimes it fails. And what are the reasons, or what are the conditions in the language learning? So Brown made some parameters. We will see what are the parameters and how they works and how they are having their role in the teaching learning process. The first one, learners' characteristics. Second one, linguistic factors. Third one, learning process. Then age and acquisition, classroom instruction, context, and purpose. So these are the most probable influencing factors in teaching learning process. That's what Dr. Brown proposed. So in learner characteristics, we have to find out who are the learners that you are teaching. Being a teacher, he or she needs to identify who are the learners. Maybe they are from a different setup. They are learning maybe just for getting the degree. Some people may be seriously learning to get more knowledge, or some people may still be very serious to learn newer things. Some people may have some broader idea so as to do some researches in the further levels. So we have to identify the learners and their roles, and their ethnic, linguistic, and religious heritage, and their native languages, levels of education, socioeconomic characteristics, and life experiences, and their affect what affect their learning, and their intellectual capacities, abilities, strengths, and weakness, and their personality, and the how they just start this course primarily. So these are the learner's characteristics. These are the parameters that should be tested by. In most of the cases, people feel that it is nothing to do with the learning, but it is. And next important factor is linguistic factors. While teaching linguistics, now we notice in so many cases the learning style and the input of the same subject, when it is being tested, it varies in different levels. For example, we admitted students from different culture, different languages, different setup, and from different countries. So we teach in a similar way, but the examination answer sets, we notice that their answer patterns and their examples and their answers will be completely different. For example, even the basic questions, how they are approached by different students, completely different. And what is their language, and what is the language, and what is communication, and what does it mean when they say someone knows how to use a language, and the relevant different similarities between first language and second language, and properties of first language, second language. And so these are the basic things that should be considered. Other than that, the practice will not be fulfilled. And learning process. So how does the learning process takes place, and steps to successful learning, and second language acquisition process, and what are strategies available for the learners, and interrelationship, mental, emotional, physical process of successful learning. That is to be pre-planned. That is to be pre-planned. And the next important factor is age and acquisition. People used to say age is not a factor for learning, but it is there. When you mix a group of people, age is a biggest constraint. So if you add group people of different age groups, for sure you cannot get a similar kind of result. Sometime it will work and sometime it will not work, because their thinking pattern, their ideas, their experience, their cognitive ideas completely different. That will deviate the idea of achievement at the end. And classroom instruction, we have so many different types of instruction. We have methods and context. What is the context for learning and the purpose? So now I just want to complete this lecture round with a simple understanding of competence and performance. So, madam, what time I'm supposed to complete?
Yes, Professor, you can take your own time. No problem.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. So, a simple thing about competence versus performance, we can see most of you know that, just for your recall. So, competence consists of a mental representation of linguistic rules which constitute the speaker hearer's internalized grammar. Here we could say, when two people are speaking together, their understanding is based on their competence rather than their performance. So to understand the things, they should have the stock of vocabulary in the particular language. For example, the competence of the two speakers, one hearer, one speaker. If they are from the same locality, with same culture, same age, and same knowledge level and same age group, most probably their competence also will be the same if they studied in the same level. So there won't be any kind of internalized grammatical difference or internalized idea or visualized grammar. So the competence level, that is no constraint. At the same time, if they are from two different groups, their competence in their particular language will be okay. But when they cross the level, when the listener and the speaker are from two different groups, their competence are equally good and similar level in their particular language only, but their performance cannot be recognized, because the performance is the outcome. Performance is based on the competence what they possess in them. For example, if one's mother tongue is good, for example, a Tamil language speaker, he has a very good stock of vocabulary, he has very good grammatical rules, and he is able to make structures with very fluid and fantastic way. At the same time, if his competence is expressed to a non-Tamil speaker, if his performance is made to the non-Tamil speaker, then they cannot. So their meaning conveys performance will be disturbed. At the same time, the listener who is having equal competence of the Tamil speaker, but the language is different. So the competence, how it can be explained? The language will be the barrier. So they have the stock of vocabulary, they have the rules of the language, they have a right concept, they have the right idea. Moreover, they have the right cognitive expertise. But when the context differs, it will not work. So performance consists of the comprehension and protection of the language, and language acquisition studies are interested in how competence is developed. And however, because the rules of the learner is internalized and not open to direct inspection, it has been necessary to examine how the learner performs mainly in production. So in certain cases, even in the classroom tests and the final examination, students feel, negatively, because they are not able to, write well, and they are not able to achieve good marks, because the questions asked in the examination may be different from their preparation. So maybe they can claim that if the question is from some other persons, I would have made 100 out of 100. But it is unfortunate, I didn't look into that chapter, so I failed or I got low score. So what is the thing, and how to justify the performance, how to identify the performance? So, competence and performance. Performance is purely based on the competence, but how the competence can be testified when there is no right perspective to express and explore the true idea in the sense, biggest constraint. And then the next one is Brown and Lee model, and he has some ideas related to language learning and teaching. Among the learners, he identified some components which are crucial. First one is automaticity, transfer, reward, self-regulation, interaction, identity and investment, language, and culture connection. So we will see what is automaticity, what is meant by automaticity. So efficient second language learning involves learners progressing from controlled limited language practice to automatic language processing. How can we accept? Is it within the accepted limit? So efficient second language learning involves learners progressing from controlled limited language practice to automatic language processing. So again, we are going to drillings. Students move toward fluency and think about language less as they progress. Is there any contradictory idea? Students move toward fluency and think about language less as they progress. So, was what the humanists believe. When they get the perfection in the style, they did enjoy, they did not like to see what is inside the style. Even now we could notice in most of the cases how the slangs and how the portmanteau expression and how the jargon and how the substandard varieties are created among the youngsters. You could see the meme creators, you see the language generators. Sometimes it is a non-word, but still people enjoy. Maybe because of their fancy pronunciation or fancy expression or shortened form, the style may be interesting. So when everybody start to enjoy the style, when everybody like to accept the style, they don't bother about the creation of the word. Even some unwanted or ugly or negative meaningful words also made more interesting, and they do enjoy. So the reason is simple. When people do like enjoying the language, they don't bother too much about the reality of the language. They don't want to dissect or reconstruct or identify or rewrite the particular sentence or the word to identify where the grammatical error lies. They don't want to do that. When it is fine, that is fine. We can have a look at the songs. How many songs are grammatically constructed? How many songs are well sung within the limitations of the right pronunciation? You could see some Tamil songs, my mother tongue is Tamil. I will have a question whether it is a Tamil song or not. Maybe, they just want to make it, but still people enjoy. They don't want to. So that is what they feel, fluency in songs. So children learn first language inductively through exposure to the language. That is, it is automatic for them. And fluency is developed through extensive long-term practice, which focuses primarily on meaning with an optional amount of attention to form. So here there is a fine dichotomy between the meaning and form. So how many people do enjoy the form and how many people do enjoy the meaning? So these days, some people, they do enjoy the form, and some people, they don't like the form, rather they just like to get the meaning because meaning is more important for them. And nowadays we we give a priority to visualization also. Now the language is not just simply language. Now we have three patterns. I noticed in so many expressions in social media and in modern expressions among the youngsters, we could notice that people incorporate spoken form, written form, and visual form. That may be in the form of a picture or a kind of animation or a kind of video. So only these three things sync together. And people, most of the cases, they don't want to, once upon a time, people did enjoy reading alone when there was no animation or when there was no audio or video existed. And later on, audio came and people tried to enjoy audio. And now this visualization and the artificial intelligence helps them to create and modify and mend and bend and do any kind of gimmicks. And they take this kind of computer generated or artificial enabled any kind of incorporation of image or kind of animation or a kind of short clip or video that's part and parcel of the modern day communication. I don't know what could be the next focus. So now more than meaning and form, and we have to add one more addition: meaning, form, and image. And in automaticity, in the classroom, we have mechanical, manipulative, communicative, teacher-controlled, and student-controlled patterns of teaching and learning process. So the mechanical activities, you can see activities learners get meaningful order. And for example, learners thinking about the position of the tongue in the pronunciation of certain sounds, or learning how to write in Roman script, or doing mechanical but necessary activities. In the classroom, drills, substitutions, exercises, and using prompts to produce structures or common mechanical activities. That's what we do, and that's what we witness. And then manipulative activities and controlled conversation, translation, repetitions, substitution drills. These are the various types of techniques or otherwise strategies to incorporate with the activities. And communicative activities, we have role play, contract assignments, interviews, oral presentations, reports. And the next important thing that helps or disturbs: transfer. Learners naturally seek to transfer existing knowledge and abilities to a new knowledge or skill, and help learners make meaningful connections between their existing knowledge and skill and the new material. So here we notice, when you transfer one idea or knowledge or experience from one medium to other medium, or one language to other language, or one concept to other concept, or one culture to other culture, it works sometime, but it will go in a negative manner sometimes, right? So transfer, it depends, not always help, but learners have to apply the transfer activities. By translation activities, we try to apply some transfers. For example, Tamil language, one kind of rule, and English language, other kind of rule. Maybe some basic difference. If you transfer the rule of your mother tongue into other tongue, sure, it may work in certain cases, it may not work. So transfer can be successful with the right knowledge and abilities. And rewards. So these are the things which should be given to the students, and in most of the cases, it will motivate them. And self-regulation, successful learners take proactive approach to the learning, and they set learning goals and strive autonomy. And these are purely based on the psychological nature of the learners. Identity and investment. And support your students by choosing activities that challenge but don't overwhelm. Be passionate, positive, sympathetic. Give students choice in how they learn. That's why people used to say, learners should be motivated, learners should be encouraged rather than imposed or rather than forced. Language, culture connection. I will just end up this session with this one. So far, we have seen some of the basic theories that embodied teaching learning process, especially in second language. And now, how we can see the influence of culture and the cultural components or cultural elements that influence language learning, and language teaching. So successfully learning a language means learning about the culture too. Yeah, without the culture, we cannot learn things. Some of the things we cannot separate. So whenever you teach a language, you also teach a complex system of culture, customs, values, and ways of thinking, feeling, and acting. Now, we are dealing more about the English language. How to teach English culture? Is it necessary to teach English culture for the students? So when you consider English as a second language, you don't need to worry too much about the culture. Rather, you just take it as a kind of tool for your survival or for your professional or for your, basic need. At the same time, when you consider English as a foreign language, or if you want to know about the true sense and essence of the language, for sure, there must be a kind of, or there must be a certain level of cultural components to be included in the teaching learning process. So, for sure. And whenever you teach a language, you also teach a complex system of cultural customs, values, and ways of thinking, feeling, acting, and all kinds of, other available things you can do, and help your students understand cultural customs, values, and ways of thinking, feeling, and acting. And whenever you teach a language, you also teach a complex system of cultural customs, values, and ways of thinking, feeling, and acting. So the culture helps learning newer things, and it helps to get rid of the fatigue over learning a newer language. So with this, I just complete this lecture, and hopefully you got something, or you just recall something. And dear friends, you are free to ask questions or discuss things related to what I just gave you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor, for your thought-provoking lecture. And we enjoyed your lecture. And this forum is open to you, audience. You can convey your comments and your questions. We are welcoming your questions.
Professor, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
This is Navin Raj from Trincomalee, Sri Lanka. I really enjoyed your talk on this matter, and you really covered a lot of areas.
Yes.
So, coming back to the earlier points that you mentioned, I would like to ask the question.
Yes.
So that question may help the students who are studying in the Trincomalee campus.
Yeah.
The question is that you mentioned about behaviorist theories, and also you spoke about the mentalist theories or cognitive theories. So, is it are they both operating at the same level, or are they compartmentalized in the process of learning the second language? For example, practice and reward and punishment, daily classroom mechanical way of going, all that is going in the line of behaviorist theory.
Yeah.
Am I right? Is it right?
Yeah. To some extent, you're right.
The other one is that they have the capacity. All the human beings have the capacity to take any amount of languages as they want, when they want to study, when they want to learn it. So that capacity is innate, according to Noam Chomsky. Innate. At the same time, there is another theory goes on, generative grammar, where with a handful of grammar, we can generate many amount of ideas or sentences. Therefore, the sentence, the syntax of any language will give way to say anything that comes in our mind, or rather to pass the ideas and the feelings through the medium of language. Now, my question now is, after telling all this background, my question is that the nature versus nurture. That means the innate ability of a human beings is the nature. The nurture, N-U-R-T-U-R-E, nurture, that is being developed as we learn something. So one is giving the ability from within, that is nature, that is innate ability. The other one is we learn or acquire or learn discipline way, we learn it. So will you say that all these two things are simultaneously operating in the process of second learning, or one is divorced from the other or compartmentalized?
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful idea. You made a question, you made a very good understanding, as well as you gave the answer finally too. Okay, I'll explain you with some more clarity. So finally, you finish it up with whether these two kinds of cognitive, that means Chomskyan idea and behaviorist B.F. Skinner's idea are functioning together in the human mind. Of course, it is that. Of course, for example, simple thing I tell you, in the English language, we teach the children, when you write third person, singular, present tense, simple present tense, you have to add yes with the verb. For example, he go to school. No, he goes to school. That is right. Okay. So the child, when he learns, he says, for third, for example, in simple sentence, in the present tense, only we need to add yes, why. In the past tense, we don't use. In the future tense, we don't use. So only among the 20 forms, in active 12 and passive 8, among the 20 forms, only the simple sentence, present tense, third person singular, in this occurrence, we add yes with the verb. Why? It is highly irregular. The child knows that. So he goes on writing, he go, she go, it go, like that. But what we do, this is the mentalist idea. This is a mentalist idea. Whereas when the child grows at one point of time, I should not write he go. For example, will any professor write he go? No, because he is forced. He is forced because he has to follow the rules. He has to follow the rules. It is a kind of behaviorist idea. It is a behaviorist belief. And now we are forced. I know that writing or adding yes with the verb is highly irregular. It is the only sentence, only occurrence. It is completely different from other forms of the same language. But now I am accustomed. Now I learn this irregular pattern as a kind of regular pattern. So knowingly or unknowingly, we made the cognitive process works in the human being when they grow. At one point of time, one certain level of time, they are just change themselves. They are otherwise they are forced to follow this behaviorist model or behaviorist idea. The constraints are based on the rules, based on the limitations, based on the culture, based on the reason, based on the logic. We cannot. So, as you rightly pointed out at the end, both the theories are working in the human beings. Even if we have, or even if we learn something out of our cognitive creation, we are forced to give shape in the form of the traditional form, the traditional acceptability. So both of the theories are working. But at the same time, in so many cases, for example, to learn the sound structure, we give recurrent practices. We give drills and kind of punishment sometimes to students while teaching them to the right pronunciation. If we don't do that, they will not. They cannot claim that this sound should be like that. So we have to follow some tradition. But because language, even though it is arbitrary, it is traditional. It should be maneuvered, it should be nurtured, and it should be safeguarded for a prolonged time to get out of any confusion in meaning-making process. So we cannot rely completely on the cognitive style and cognitive function of the brain process. Rather, we also need to give right reservation and right room for the behaviorist patterns. Otherwise, the meaning-making process will go into the confused pattern. So are you satisfied now?
Thank you that you gave the equal importance to both theories. That is what I wanted, because we can't simply say that we have the innate ability so that automatically language learning can come. No, it is not so. Even though we have that ability, somebody has to teach, somebody has to learn, practice, and all what you said should be practiced in the classroom. and especially that the pronunciation and other things. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Welcome, sir.
Any questions from the students?
If others are not asking, I am a good learner. Dr. Niruba, I am a good learner. So I would like to ask the second question. Sir, are there any, will you say that one particular language is superior to any other languages? Or would you consider that your Tamil is the best language? If so, if you consider that one language is superior to other languages, so what will happen in the process of learning the languages?
So, no, there is no point of comparing a language with other language. In the initial stage, I just explained, before we create any rule, before we have any idea, language born. Language is a kind of arbitrary nature. It born first. Even human beings, you can, when you read Ragula Sangatya in Walter with Changes, you could notice that and they give form and they not with the right pronunciation, and they give the structure, and that is how the language is revolutionized thing. It is by means of the evolution. In such a way, if you look at every language, again, they have their own origin, they have their own history. So, when a child born, the language spoken by the mother, and the child is just grabbing from the mother. So we used to call linguistic chauvinism. Linguistic chauvinism. For each and every child is mother.
I think something went wrong. Professor lost the signal, I think so. Let's see.
Hello, can you hear my voice? This is Chandramohan from Annamalai University.
It is. We can hear you, but make sure the professor.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Wait.
Professor, are you on the line? Professor Subramanian, sir?
Professor Subramanian's mic is not working.
That is the problem. That is the problem now.
I'll call him again.
We cannot say it is the best language. No one can claim that this is the worst language. No, that kind of thing. So a language is a language which is used for communication among the human being. Maybe it will have a lesser history. Sometimes it may have a longer history. Maybe based on the history, we can call it as a kind of classical language. Based on the matured grammar or a kind of flawless grammar, we can call it as a kind of best fine language. But coming to the point of best language, even if it is spoken by two people in the tribal status, we cannot compare. Language is a language. It is used for communication. There should not be any discrimination among the languages, whoever it may be. As a linguist and linguistic perspective, almost all the languages have their equal role in the society. The purpose of the language is to communicate the ideas among the human being. And we are elevating that level into computer level nowadays. And at this juncture, if anybody says or tries to claim that my mother tongue is best one, it is not rational. It is not rational. There is no reason behind it. That is my humble, opinion, Professor.
Okay, sir, very well explained. Still, I have a doubt because I have a doubt in the sense I just like to say the complexity in the grammar form, the complexity in the syntax, and the vast varieties of verb vocabulary make one language very rich. One of those languages is Tamil language. Anybody studying Tamil as a second language may have the trouble in learning the Tamil in comparison to other languages. That is why I'm asking, if one language is very rich in grammar, very rich in syntax, very rich in vocabulary, will it cause a problem to others?
Yeah, yes, sir. I know. Language maturity, for example, when we say or when we call a language is more mature and more perfect, when it has more number of regulations and rules and syntactic patterns, as you rightly pointed out, but that is not that will not always give a kind of feature. Rather, it will just diminish the learning potentiality. Even if he is a native speaker, it won't encourage. But some salient features that will add more styles and that will help to form newer structures. So that is considered as a kind of feature. For example, language plays a crucial role. Personalities of the human being and the human management was made by means of one's language maturity and one's language flawlessness and one's language style and the pattern. So their exactness, that was considered long back, not now, that was considered the parameters to judge and decide and consider a person, his personality, his character, and everything. But nowadays, it is not in such a way it is considered. And those days, you can take a look at the language spoken some 500, 600 years ago. The language was very considered as a kind of greatest tool or weapon. And people in the higher estate, they used grand style. And the people who live in the outskirts of the so-called emperor system, they are not using that one. And most of the vocabulary items they should not use. That was also imposed. But now we are so modernized, and we are just making the language more easier and more familiar. Take a look at Tamil language. It has a wonderful history. It came across several ages. So the maturity of the grammatical patterns, in the modern day, we are not able to use because it is very difficult to follow. But the basic, the necessary grammatical patterns we are following. But for non-native speakers, not just Tamil, sir, have you ever heard of Chinese language? You can try for Chinese language. I know Chinese language. I learned the basics of Chinese language. And go with the Thai language. They are 100% difficult than the Tamil language. So, for non-native speakers, based on the non-native speakers, or when a person is just learning second language or third language, we cannot consider it is easier or difficult, whether it is important or not. So, comparatively speaking, after learning 5 or 6 languages in different language families, you can consider which one is easier, which one is difficult. But the easiness and difficulties are not constrained for the native speakers. For example, Chinese people, when a Chinese student goes to school, he has to learn some 7,000 characters. 7,000 characters. Only then he can be fluent in Chinese language. So from the standard of 6th to 9th for 4 years, every year they have to learn 2,000 characters. So I used to ask the students, why you are wearing glasses at a young age? They say, sir, every year we have to practice 2,000 characters, learn 2,000 characters. By reading and reading, we lost their sight like that. So such language also existing, but it is not a constraint for them. And when they learn English language, it is that much simple, but they used to claim that English is the most difficult language in the world. So if I say my mother tongue, and they will run away from the place. So coming to the point of language and difficulties, it cannot be considered by means of the second language in our perspective, sir. So Tamil still people do enjoy, and some people say it is easier, and they like, maybe based on the approach or something like that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So the questions from the students. At least one comment and a question from a student.
Yes, madam.
Yes, students, we expect students are the future linguists.
First of all, thank you for your very valuable lecture, sir. My question is, we can see so many individual differences among learners. So analyzing, employing these theories, how do we address these individual differences of learners?
So, individual differences are there, madam. We should have individual differences. We expect individual differences. So we don't need any kind of similarities. For example, even as per the behaviorist pattern, even if one teacher is teaching one style of language, for example, I may use some 5 or 10 types of sentences, 10 varieties. But my learners, my students who learn from me may have still other varieties of sentence patterns. So that is good. Language should be a kind of unique thing. Yeah, it is unique thing. It depends on their cognitive outcome. So there is no such kind of things, and the theories will not have any kind of constraint or kind of hurdle for them. And we apply the theories to understand how these theories are working from their outcome. So their linguistic skill, that can be identified how it works. And it is the theories are just kind of tools to understand the patterns. But it doesn't matter how many number of different or new patterns comes from among the students, they all welcome factors. What we simply do, if the students are differing in conceptual framework, we just consider meaning and form. That's the two thing. And if the meaning and form syncs, it is fine. Sometimes people give more importance to the form, and sometimes they give importance to the meaning. And we just consider both of them equally. Other than that, it is fine. They make a very grand style, they give importance to the form. Sometimes the form will be, having a lot of flaws, but the idea, the clarity will be very high standard. So we also need to appreciate that them too.
Okay, so thank you very much.
So any questions? Comments?
If there is a big gap between people asking questions, then I will post my question. As I always say, I am interested in language learning and teaching. And furthermore, the speaker today is very interesting, and I would like to post my next question. Sir,
Yes.
you touched on this competence and performance. I have a problem in that. The native speakers of English, those who speak English as their mother tongue, or mother tongue, when they face grammar exam, when they face competitive exams in grammar paper, half of them fail, or some of them, majority of them fail in England. I just say in England. But the people who have gone to England to study English from India, Sri Lanka, from Asian countries, they have outscored the native speakers. If that is so, is there anything wrong with the native speakers of English in getting the competence correctly?
Yeah, very good question. I also faced the same thing. When myself and English guy were supposed to teach language, I was given spoken language, and he was given writing course. When we discussed together in the table, and he was laughing quite loud and said, "Sir, you studied English language. That is your subject. You are the right person to teach writing." And he said, "I'm a native speaker of English, so I am the right person to teach English." So we exchanged the paper, and literally he admitted that um, uh, I cannot teach writing because he didn't learn it properly. He stopped. So I asked the same question for all the people. For example, if you take your profession as a teacher, if you take English as a subject, then you are the English teacher. If you take Tamil or Tamil, if you take Singlish, you are a Singlish teacher. Right. Now, the point here is the amount of hard work, the amount of time we spent on a particular language that gives that kind of achievement in that particular language. Of course, my mother tongue is Tamil. If you just ask me to teach Tamil grammar, right away I cannot go and do it, but I can do it in English language. What is the reason? Because my profession and my studies are related to English language teaching, so I do it. I didn't learn properly after my higher secondary and UG first 2 semesters about Tamil grammar, so they cannot do that. So this is a simple example. It is applicable to anybody, not just native speaker. So the Indians, they learn English for competitive exam. They know the pattern, they know the idea, they know every system. They practice regularly and they do it. So coming to the point of here, competence. A native speaker will have a competence in his native fluency. For example, when you watch in a movie, a Hollywood movie, is it possible for you to understand all the gimmicks they make in their expression? They will mumble sometimes. They will mumble sometimes. We cannot understand because it is purely their culture base, and they are competent enough in understanding that kind of language, the kind of expression. We cannot do that one. And if they are trained to learn their mother tongue grammar professionally, they can do it. So most probably the simple answer is those who work in that particular field can do. The competence can be developed based on their learning, based on their amount of time they spend towards learning. And based on the competence, the performance is received.
Good. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
So any other questions? Comments? So this is the last call for the questions. Right. Okay. So Professor, thank you. Thank you for your wonderful lecture. We'll move to the last part of this session, vote of thanks.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. So those who want to ask questions, even if you don't have time now, you can just post the questions to madam. She can convey to me through email. I will just give my opinions, or I can share my answers and reach to you. Thank you.
Yes, Professor. Yes, thank you. Thank you. If you want to say something else before the vote of thanks, you can, and we can move.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your good listening, and thanks for your interesting and nice logical questions. Nice. Thank you very much for the wonderful opportunity. I thank Dr. Nirba madam. So she took quite nice effort and wonderful. And the listeners, they listen. Actually, I just wanted to make it in an interactive manner, but it is unfortunate. The facilities are not that much available. And in future, we'll try for with less content, with more interaction. Yeah. Thank you, madam. Thank you for your opportunity offered to me to meet the people in this evening. Thank you very much.
It is we who have to thank you. It's a wonderful lecture. And we'll move to the next agenda. Vote of thanks. Prashanta?
Okay. I think am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are.
Okay. Good evening, all. As we come to the close of this enlightening webinar on English language teaching and learning theories. So I'm Prashant, the fourth year student of Department of Languages and Communication Studies. Yeah, have the honor of expressing our gratitude to you, sir. First and foremost, I would like to extend our deepest thanks to our distinguished speaker today, Dr. V.M. Subramanian, Professor in Linguistics and Head of the Department of Linguistics at Bharatiya University, India. And your insights significantly enriched our understanding of the various theories like humanist theory, behaviorist theory, mentalism, cognitive theory, and all. And approaches in English language teaching and learning, that your passion for the subject and clear articulation have made complex concepts accessible and engaging. So, and thank you, sir. And we equally grateful to Dr. Niruba Jayasundara, Senior Lecturer in Linguistics, Department of Language and Communication Studies, for her welcome and continuous support in organizing this event. And Dr. Rohan Savarimuthu, our Senior Lecturer in English and Head of the Department, Information Technology, Trincomalee Campus, Eastern University, Sri Lanka. Thank you, sir, thank you, sir, and madam, for your dedication for fostering academic growth. Thank you both, you madam and sir again. And our former head, Dr. Naveen Raj, thank you for your presence today. Sir, next I would like to thank all of the participants for their engagement in this evening. So finally, thank you all once again for your time and contribution, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you. Good night.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Prashanta. And Professor? Professor, are you there?
Hello, ma'am. Shall I end the meeting?
Yes, yes, you can end because his mic.
Okay, ma'am. So
Right.
thank you.